When I was younger, I was afraid of a lot of things. I was just kind of an easily scared kid. What little I'd seen of Resident Evil 3 kept me awake at night, the X-Files theme haunted me for years. I mean, for God's sake, I had nightmares about the honey monster, so to say I was skittish would be a fairly large understatement. One day I was visiting a friend's house, and he started up a little game called Dante made his appearance in the introduction, then this happened, and I almost turned the game off then and there. But then... Wait, he's not dead? How do you live through that? How did he do that? That was probably expensive. That is the fastest I've seen a man eat pizza. Did this guy just perform a sick-ass demon kickflip? This whole sequence absolutely blew my mind. It turned the tables so hard on what I thought was a typical horror scene. It turned out the most dangerous thing in a room full of demons was me, the player. Immediately once I got home, the first thing to cross my mind was, I need this game. Was I old enough to be playing the game? Absolutely not. Was it one of the best decisions I've ever made? I fell in love with Devil May Cry. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was motivated. Now, sure, this all explains how I got into the series as a whole, but what does this actually have to do with Devil May Cry? Well, everything.
Jackpot.
For a long time, the Devil May Cry games were some of the most challenging I've ever played. But no matter how many times I got my ass kicked, spoilers, that happened a lot, I kept coming back, diving into these seemingly impossible challenges, and maybe, just maybe, I'd finally overcome that boss that was giving me so much trouble, Cerberus! Devil May Cry 3 is a game that creates a perfect symbiosis between story and gameplay. You play as the wisecracking half-demon Dante, out to fight back a horde of demons unleashed on his home. To this end, he heads to the Temminigru, invited by his brother Virgil, and oh boy, we'll get to him in a minute. First though, I want to talk about how I believe Dante is a brilliantly empowering protagonist. He basically laughs in the face of death because he already knows damn well his enemies, save for Virgil, don't stand a chance. These insanely dangerous and powerful demons capable of killing normal humans in the blink of an eye are barely a threat to him. Now obviously this is more common to see these days, especially within the same genre, but at the time it was rare to see a character as endearingly confident and full of himself as Dante, and the reason it worked so damn well in DMC3 is thanks to how it affects the gameplay. Consider this, it's a common theme in horror games for the protagonist to be some sort of vulnerable or notably distressed character. Perhaps they move sluggishly or can't attack threats effectively. Maybe they can't attack them at all. It makes the player feel as though they lack control over the situation, which adds to the unnerving elements of horror. Now let's look back at Dante. He's the complete inversion of that.
Easy, Fido. How about I take you out for a walk? Come on, puppy. Let's go.
Dante's personality is so strong and his capabilities so boundless that playing as him gives the player the sense that they are in complete control of the situation, even when they're getting beaten down. This leads to the impression that if the player dies, it was ultimately their own fault, not because of something cheap or unavoidable. It makes it easier for players to bounce back and give it another go when they do fail, and it means that once you succeed, it feels immensely satisfying, because it is entirely indicative of you specifically improving. It is the purest sense of accomplishment a video game can provide. You can see clear examples of this in games like Dark Souls, where it is defined as the process of getting good. That moment everything clicks, and you suddenly see yourself consistently succeeding after enduring failure for a while. Apprehension goes out the window and gives way to confidence. This also tends to be what keeps players of that game coming back, because there's no substitute for that whopping heap of dopamine they get from tackling the boss of the hour. But goddammit, DMC did it first, okay? Just as the game helped me push beyond that initial bout of fear, it's basically built to get players past that early trepidation, to motivate them as much as a video game can. It's easy for games to offer simple alternatives to their players, but it is a whole other matter to actually encourage consistent improvement. Even today, this is a rare quality with games because it takes a lot more than simply making your game difficult, and a good protagonist is only one of the most valuable qualities. Another is a good opponent. Almost every single boss fight in DMC3 is memorable. Not only are the designs absolutely killer and the pre-fight banter perfectly quirky, but their fights encompass various different strategies that force you to adapt with every new fight, and arm you with greater knowledge for future battles. The cherry on top being the weapon form each of these demons take, which provides you with an ever-expanding variety of new abilities. While the game as a whole is built around overcoming adversity, the single best representation of the idea is presented in its purest form when it comes to fighting one very special devil boy, Virgil.
You got that right.
There are a number of reasons Virgil is basically the perfect video game antagonist, and one of them is the fact that he is adversity incarnate. You can watch almost anyone fight him for the first time and, what do you know, easy mode is now selectable. He can do just about all of the things you can, which means no matter how good you are, he can still give you a taste of your own medicine. If you try chipping away with your guns, say hello to the windmill. If you blindly rush in with Stinger, uh-oh, you get the idea. Less experienced players remember him for how dauntingly challenging he is, and even highly skilled players adore fighting him due to how insanely fun the experience is. Obviously, this can depend upon difficulty modes, as challenge is something that varies between people, but Virgil can and will push you to be the best you can be. And as a result, it's incredibly easy to connect with Dante's plight to grow stronger than him. Defeating him is as much the player's goal throughout the game as it is Dante's, but this isn't the only thing that connects the two. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the crowning jewel of surpassing limits, Devil Trigger. I made an entire video about this concept, but while the whole superform thing may not have been an entirely new idea, even outside of the series itself, it was, without a doubt, perfected in this game. To simplify what I said in that video, Devil Trigger makes you feel good. Its gradual healing makes new players feel safe, and its immense destructive capabilities makes experienced players feel unstoppable. But it's only temporary, and once it's gone, it's on you to fill the meter back up. This naturally encourages players to be a little braver if they want to make use of it more often, to test their boundaries, which is practically the lifeblood of these games. It's all about players experimenting and pushing themselves, until they can pull off wild stuff they never thought they could manage. With his Devil Trigger awakened, Dante is now a proper match for Virgil. It represents a vital element of the story that you as a player get to experience through the new mechanic granted to you, hence the game's subtitle, Dante's Awakening. Devil Trigger allows Dante, and by extension the player, to become far more capable than they were to begin with. Obviously, this was already done in DMC 1 and 2, but here it represents the defining gap between you and Virgil. By the time you face Virgil for the second time, you feel far more on par with the guy thanks to this new power, though you can be sure he'll still give you a run for your money. Once you reach the final battle, it's clear Virgil is using everything he has to take you down, at which point it's a contest of his daunting power against all Dante has become, and all the player has become. Devil May Cry 3 surpassed its own limits as a video game to become something so much more. Something fans will always cherish and remember fondly. It single-handedly reinvented an entire genre and is held as the gold standard among video games for its stylish action even to this day. It created a whole culture of skilled players who took to creating absolutely insane combo videos, experimenting with so many different approaches to combat to reach a constantly evolving pinnacle of style and expertise. Through the perfect balance of challenge and reward, DMC3 developed gameplay that has come to define the series, keeping players coming back to improve their skills, invent wacky combos, or purely for the experience of enjoying the technical marvel on display. This game just wouldn't have the same appeal if it was made far easier or the challenge was removed entirely. That difficulty directly feeds into the satisfaction of surpassing the dangerous enemies the game throws at you. If you're a fan of these games, even if you're only vaguely decent at them, I want you to take a moment to look back at how far you've come. We were all terrible at games like these once upon a time. But by keeping at it and striving to improve, you did just that. Just as Dante overcomes Virgil by finding a purpose worth fighting for, the player overcomes their own limits by finding the drive to not only succeed, but to do so in the most efficient and flashy ways possible, to surpass victory itself. As I've made fairly obvious throughout this video, I honestly believe that a driving theme behind DMC3 is that of surpassing limits. A journey that, once it's over, will see the protagonist grow more capable along with the player themselves. It's one of few games that perfectly bridges the gap between story and gameplay, enhancing both and creating an experience that fans keep coming back to for a variety of reasons. A surprisingly touching story full of subtle depth, utterly groundbreaking gameplay showcasing amazingly intense combat, an experience full of some of the most flat-out fun you can have in a video game.
I'm absolutely crazy about it.
These are the driving factors of why most fans can agree that DMC3 is a masterpiece, one that Capcom will never be able to surpass. Oh, wait! Thank you so much for watching. If you'd be interested in seeing more content like this, feel free to subscribe or follow me on Twitter. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider taking a look at my Patreon, or you can donate directly through PayPal. Links can be found in the description below. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.